Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We are getting off the Bruce train, though I'm sure he will come up, as he often does. And tonight, we are talking about songs that make you think and dance with my new friend, Joe. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you. Thank you
So,
for inviting me. And I'll say I use the artist name Joseph Schwartz, uh,
yes.
just so people can remember me.
That's pretty fun. So tell us a little about yourself.
I actually spent my life in as a corporate executive doing software development. I retired last year and started playing with music created with AI tools, more just for fun, and got really engaged by it and found I was listening to my own music more than I was listening to other music that I was fascinated with. And so now I'm on this weird journey of finding how to express myself in ways that I never have been able to before, and going through all sorts of learning projects, both in terms of song creation, but now also promotion and distribution.
All right. We're going to do a deep dive on that. I have lots of questions, but I always like to start at the beginning. So talk about where did you grow up and what kind of music was your family listening to when you were younger?
I grew up in South Florida,
Okay.
um, and my parents did not really like anything starting at Elvis.
Okay.
So we listened to a lot of show tunes, Robert Goulet, Sammy Davis Jr., that sort of stuff. Basically, I think they drew the line at anything with the guitar.
Okay.
My brothers listened to Led Zeppelin, Peter Frampton, stuff like that. So I picked that up, and I mostly listened to FM pop radio that kind of led through all of the normal 70s rock, pop, singer, songwriter people, and Billy Joel and Elton John. And then the big transition in music was moving into college, where I got all these other things. And that was in upstate New York. And Bruce was the ultimate king of the universe.
What, when did you go to college? What time frame?
It was 1981 to 86.
Okay.
So
So,
people from New York
yeah.
worshipped Bruce. I was aware of him. I liked him. In fact, they played one of his songs in the soap opera that my mom listened to that I really liked, which became one of my favorite Bruce songs growing up.
That is hilarious. On Are your brothers and sisters, do you just brothers? Do you have sisters too?
Three brothers, they were all older.
Okay, all older. So you were the youngest?
Yeah.
So I always think it's interesting when we discuss siblings, they play a big part in the discussion with my guests. If you're an older sibling, you often are the influence to younger, right? If you're a younger sibling, you have been influenced by them, or and sometimes the other way. Like if they're really into classic rock, you may pick punk or something. It is always interesting how not when I ask about your family, it's always parents, but there is also a fair amount of people that talk about the siblings of how you wanted to be like the cool older brother or cool older sister. And so that's pretty fun.
Yeah, in my case, my brothers were significantly older,
Okay.
so I got the impression of their music, but I wasn't really engaged in it, and it really came around and came back to me when I was in high school, when I really started getting into The Who
Yeah,
and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, which was already older then.
sure. When you went to school, what did you want to go to? What did you go to school for?
Computer science.
Okay.
So I
What
ended up becoming a programmer, and
what about computer science spoke to you?
at the time, it was just becoming big. I loved math. It seemed like I could get a job easier with computer science than pure math. And then it played out through the course of college and the jobs that I had. It turned out to support the way I think. It afforded me lots of different opportunities to do different things. I got to go work in Europe, and there was a
Nice.
lot of fun stuff around it.
So one of the big what ifs in my life is I graduated high school in 77 and I scored really high on the PSAT or ACT, one of the tests, and it said that I had a real high aptitude for mathematics. And my favorite teacher in high school, one of my favorites, was Mrs. Jacobs, and she was the math teacher. And she said, since you have this aptitude, you should look into going into computer science, computing science, because it won't be all strict math. I think you might like
Right.
that. So I signed up for it, and my first class was Fortran. And I'm old enough that we had to do punch cards,
Yep, we did as well.
and I could not type. And I
Oh.
got I knew how to type, but I wasn't good at typing without mistakes. And I got really frustrated because you type up all your program, put it in the card, run it, and there's errors, right? So you have to go and figure out. And so and then just like maybe 2 years later, there was more on the screen. And I think if I could have just stuck that out, I may have had a
Yeah.
whole different career. I ended up, after a couple of years, dropping out of college and just going through, and I ended up being a discovering customer service. And so I've spent the
Oh.
last 30 or 40 years managing customer service teams. So everything from customer service to tech support to outbound sales to everything. But I often think about that. Damn, I just had gotten not as stubborn or been just a little bit typist. Who knows what I would have been?
The world we lived in then, it was crazy. We did Fortran and we had to like punch up our cards, do our program, mail it to the school board computer, run it there, and then get the results like 4 days later. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, if you had a mistake, then do it again. And yeah, it wasn't, yeah, that was awful.
yeah, it really was. And what's interesting is as over the years, I've picked just enough of having to do tech support and managing a tech support team and kind of thinking about that, learning a lot of different softwares and things. So yeah, it's a very different. I had a guy I hired that had a double major. He majored in mathematics and music. No, majored in math, had a minor in music. And so I was like, tell me, what was the connection? Like, what about the mathematics of the music spoke to you and all this? And he's, I was in choir. I had a lot of music credits, so I just picked that as mine. And Joe, I was so crushed because I just was seeing the mathematics of and the science of music would be speaking to him.
Here's the super, and this is a little bit of a diversion, but one
That's
of the
okay.
super ironies I see in playing with building music with
Yeah.
AI is that I, one of my first questions was really just an honest question playing with, and it's how much can AI elevate a non-musician? Can I make stuff that's tolerable? Can I make it that's decent? And then once I started doing it, it was what's different about AI. And the biggest thing that struck me immediately was the process. Like the kind of irony and the non-intuitive thing you think is that music is art and math is and engineering and programming is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
But I look at musicians who have this incredible capability that I am blown away by. They build music note by note, piece by piece, every detail, which to me feels like the way we built programs, the way you engineer things from the ground up into all the pieces and how they fit together. Whereas I was finding, because of my lack of the fundamental capabilities, the process was listen to the music and make decisions about what you keep and what you don't. Or it's a lot of generating a lot of crap and then picking out the stuff that's decent in the crap. And so it's really more not building up from a vision, but more like taking the approach of a super listener who just listens to a lot of stuff and curates it and then builds it and puts it together.
So I am curious. I'll come back to that. I want to talk a little
Yeah.
more Bruce. So
Oh,
you're
yeah.
in college, you're discovering Bruce. Did you ever become more than a casual fan?
Oh, we all loved him. Certainly, and during that period, that was the music. And
Yeah.
even listening to one of your previous podcasts and the commentary, I'm like, okay, I think I fall into a trend because I fell off at Nebraska.
Yeah.
And, but certainly during that period, Born in the USA, driving it
Yeah.
to its peak, yeah, I was engaged with it. And even in the summer of '85, I did a Eurail trip around Europe with my roommate from college. And it happened to be, and this is my Bruce concert story, is
Yeah.
that he was playing in Paris when we landed in Paris. And so we managed to get tickets at this park outside of Paris and got to see like Springsteen, who we had always heard was amazing. And I really liked his music. I liked listening to it. But the thing that really drives you into Super Bruce loyalty is watching a performance and seeing that energy and work ethic and the capabilities of the entire band and everything in a 3 hour concert that is like more intense and bigger than anything you've ever experienced. And that's without even like any lights or technology or show or whatever.
Yes.
It's just pure, oh my God, I can't believe these guys can do this.
So I make the joke often that there's two kinds of people in the world. The people that go to their first Bruce show that go, wow, that was long. And then the rest that go, oh my goodness, when can I see this again? And
On that note,
yeah,
that concert in the park,
yeah,
it went so long, his encores were gonna run over the point of catching the last train back. So you
yeah.
had this giant packed park in Paris, and everyone is worried about being able to get home. And somehow, I guess it worked out. But I think back now, and I think what it never even crossed our mind to like not stay till the very last note.
Yeah, that's hilarious. How wonderful circumstances. And so is that the only show you've seen?
That's the only Bruce concert I've had
Okay,
the opportunity to see. And it felt like a once in a lifetime thing when I did it and
sure.
turned out to be.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Nebraska and moving off, born in the USA, and then life happens. Were there other musicians and bands that as you get out of college, you're going into, it's the early 90s, you're going
Mhm.
through life, building a career, building a family. Are there other bands you started enjoying?
Really, when I left school was I never really had a stereo system or anything. So when I left school and got a job was the first time I bought a CD player and the whole
Yeah,
thing. And the first CD I got was Born to Run, in fact. But I listened to a lot in that period of I tended to fall into a lot of the women singers. So I loved Suzanne Vega, Lisa Loeb, and Sarah McLachlan in the 90s and that whole Lilith Fair thing.
sure.
Till Tuesday. And then I really got into Green Day. And boy, I think when it got into the 90s and 2000s, there were a lot of bands that popped up and I wasn't necessarily loyal, but I liked the music as it came in. Imagine
Hmm.
Dragons and Smashing Pumpkins and then probably in more recent years and probably more because of my wife, I've kind of stayed listening to more current music. And the thing that really shocked me is the first album that I listened to over and over again was Taylor Swift Midnights.
Yes,
It caught me and I really just loved it. And I really like Olivia Rodrigo. And I just find there keeps being more and more music. And now that I've gotten more engaged in social media and emerging people,
sure.
I'm blown away by the number of people that have I don't know, whatever, 100 listens a month that are fantastic out
Yeah.
there.
Uh-huh. So when you retired, and what was there a road to Damascus moment where you decided that, hey, I want to explore being creative with AI?
Actually, it started out as I want to understand AI. I don't want to
Okay.
be what my parents were to the web.
Yeah.
And I took a Stanford course on AI and I started learning the underpinnings. And then I wanted to look at the current state of applications, and music was just something that I figured I'd try. And
Yeah.
it immediately, I played with a couple songs and wanted to see how well they could represent concepts. So I had thought, not a good predictor of the future, that in the last election, Democrats would win, things would fall aside, and a lot of people would want some supportive thing of, oh, wow, I believed in a bunch of lies and now I have to reevaluate my life. And so I wanted to do songs that supported that kind of thinking.
Okay.
And so I did a couple of songs and they totally hooked me. I just was listening to over and then I said, "Oh, maybe I can do a song in a different genre." A I did one about the Second Amendment and
Okay.
like why the problem with it is it's hard to understand,
Yeah.
right? Not like it's good or bad, and tried to like write songs that could take a nuanced complex position and see if I could articulate it in music and have the music come out listenable, like a radio friendly thing.
And musical instruments at all? You never
No.
played an instrument?
In the first grade, I played recorder.
There you go. Okay. Okay. Talk about that process. Now, I've recently played with different AIs of, and I'll say I just recently said my my podcast is all about Bruce Springsteen and his fans. I have my 10th anniversary coming up in September. Write me a promo. And
Okay.
I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. And then it's, can you edit a few things when you take it? And so I was like, and the other thing that surprised me about AI is the version of Zoom I'm on. When I used to do I used to do Skype to record the episodes, and not
Right.
everyone knew who Skype was, and it would be confusing. So the only one of the few good things that came out of the pandemic is almost everyone understands Zoom now, right? Like no
Right.
matter what age, background, oh, okay, we're going to talk on Zoom. So I said, okay, I don't want this to be just under 50 minutes, so I'm just going to pay for a license. And one of it is it built in does an AI summary of the call. And I don't know if you've seen one.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have in other contexts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I always, if someone shows an interest, I send them that. And it's eerily how accurate, yet how inaccurate it is.
Yes. It's like having a person.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of theories about the usage of AI that it will actually make people better managers because it reinforces good management behaviors like giving specific feedback about why things are good or why things are not what you want. And it does not respond to fear and intimidation.
That makes sense. It truly does make a lot of sense. And there is a lot of good about that. So you've how did you so you talked about you're wanting to see this. Walk me through the process if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Oh, so yeah, I took the free version of Udio and I think I put in a prompt that said something about write a rock song about finding out that the fundamental thing you believe in is wrong and your whole life changes because of it's built on a lie. And I got at the time the version only supported getting 30-second clips and it would deliver both lyrics and music. And so I listened to one and was like, wow, I was amazed by the promise of it. Wasn't necessarily good, but it was like it sounded full and complete with instruments and stuff, and said, wow, okay. So I generated, I don't know, a bunch more, maybe 20. And I got one that was like, oh, this is an interesting set of lyrics. And then you can build on it and extend the next, and then do another 30 generations and see if you get something that sounds interesting. And so I did that and built out a song that was, I don't know, 3.5 minutes. And as my wife pointed out when she first heard it, like, this song's terrible. The end just cuts off and there's a big blank space in the middle and stuff like that. So there are things that I learned about, even when you get something that's cool and sounds good, you still have to fix things in the middle and think about beginnings and ends and stuff like that. And so then I did another one with pretty much the same prompt. And what blew me away there is I got something very different from a sound perspective. And the first song I did that I eventually went back and fixed was a song that I released called The Hardest Truth of All. And then the second one is one that I released that's called Woken from a Lie. And they both essentially are conceptually the same message, but wildly different songs and wildly different sounds, and a woman sound, and whether it's an alternative rock or more of a pop rock feel. And then I tried to do something else. I said, oh my God, this is amazing. In a couple hours of generating. And I was like, okay, I guess this is the process. It's direct and curate. It's not envision and build. And the next one I did said, all right, give me a song that crosses the themes of The Emperor Has No Clothes and King Lear. Because I wanted to do a Trumpy thing, but be clever about how I came into it. And I loved what came out. It sounded evanescent-y to me and was willful and defiant. And I apologize. My political perspective is clear and consistent.
In fact, I was going to ask you, my wife and I are very lonely blueberries and a very big strawberry patch of Texas. Yeah, in fact, it's funny. I had a couple of people that were afraid to join me on the podcast, like, here's this guy from Texas. Well, he's a Bruce fan, so I think he'll be okay. So, yeah, no apologies for
So regardless of what your politics is, I feel like it should be able to be talked about and stuff,
Yes,
but I'm not going to
absolutely.
shy away from it.
Yeah.
So I did those first few songs and they blew me away. And then I started saying, okay, I want to do a project. I want to explore a concept. And I want to do things that are different, that make AI different than traditional music creation, because whatever, if I'm not pushing boundaries, then what's the point? And so there were two directions I went in. One that I ultimately never released, but I went every day for a month and I copied the biggest news story of the day into the AI and made a song about it. And the only thing I added to it was genre. I tried different genres. And so I have a playlist of 40 days of news from July till August of last year. And at least to me, it's pretty fascinating to relive it through song.
Yeah. So why was there, is there any, besides the obvious, of why you decided that you wanted to take at least a partial political bent on this project?
It was, so when I started, those first few songs were just tests of what was on my mind at the time. When I decided I wanted to keep doing stuff, I actually went away from political. So so my first project after the news thing was, and the news was apolitical, right? It's just news. The next project was to explore the 7 deadly sins. And so I wanted to do something where the genres didn't matter. An album wasn't connected by genre, but it was connected by this idea that each song would expose the dangers of a sin without being preachy. And so the way I thought to do that was that the protagonist singing the song was the embodiment of the sin, but didn't necessarily believe it was wrong or bad. And so that sort of drove the prompt for each of the songs, but, with one tweak for the sin. Or at least that was a starting point. Some songs it worked better, and some songs I had to come at them from a different way to get to what I wanted in terms of communicating the concept. And so then I had the Seven Deadly Sins as an album. And then I decided to pursue Virtues and do the same thing with Virtues, except exposes why they're good for the virtuous and not just a sacrifice. And so I did a song on kindness and stuff. And then I actually found that trying to do these songs made me actually go deeper and rethink the underlying philosophy and what is a sin, and is it the difference between an addiction and a sin. Some of these things may not be as cut and dried about good and evil. When I got into the idea of principles and righteousness, it was like, that might be the source of problems, not the source of solutions. And so I got fascinated with that. Then the next project was telling a story, a real story. And so a friend of mine told me about his sister who had been sick her whole life, was intellectually challenged. And one day in bed, she told her mother she just wanted to be like Herman Bean. And people were trying to figure out, what does she mean, Herman Bean? And eventually what they figured out was that she meant human being. And it was just this heart-wrenching story. And so I decided to see if I could make a song that held and communicated the same feeling as when I heard the story. And each time I tried these projects to see how much I could capture humanity and interesting thought in song, I felt like I was doing it, at least to the level that interested me. Yeah, so I'll stop. I know that was a long
No,
answer
that's
question.
good.
And
It is. So when you're playing with this and coming up with it, was there a specific song where you said, this is good enough, I want to share with someone besides just my family?
I think I was at a point where I had over 50 songs
Okay.
that I was listening to on repeat every day. And then I was like, okay, now I have a mystery. Why do I like these so much? Is it because I just listen to them over and program my own brain? Or are they something that somebody else would actually like? And they aren't necessarily song. So one, it's hard to get family to listen and get real opinions
Sure.
and all. And so the real gold standard is, would other people like them? And so that just started a whole other journey of figuring out how to get other people to listen to them and get a level of feedback. But it was really when I had such a big backlog of songs that were my only validation point was me.
Did and the it's not like it uses your voice or anything as part of this creative. Everything is from AI. The AI does the lyrics, they do the music, they do everything,
Well,
vocals.
in the beginning, I used the AI and it created the lyrics. And so my only role was to generate a million times until I found something I liked and
Yeah.
then build on that. Over time, I started changing the lyrics that were coming out there and tweaking them along with the changes. And it's also a matter of, as you're not getting things you want, changing the direction that you give to try and give things in different ways. Like when I tried to do kindness, I could never get a song out of it by giving it my objective. So what I did was I thought of a story to write and said, write a song that supports the story. Then over time, I started actually taking a different approach. So I actually ran into a friend who said, really, music generation thing, I have hundreds of lyrics that I've written and I've never been able to turn them into songs. I even tried to hire people to do it and never got what I wanted. So I said, all right, let's try one. And in 15 minutes, he was like sold. And so he gave me a bunch of his lyrics. And he took on the moniker. It was his story, and he took on the moniker Herman Bean as lyricist.
Yeah.
And I made an album that was just lyrics, like his lyrics, that I worked to try to find the right music that would fit them. And it was just through many generations. That actually kicked off a whole other avenue of thinking, because what I found in a number of cases is that the same exact lyrics worked in wildly different songs. Like he initially imagined them as country, and I generated a pop version that I loved 10 times more, or a disco version or something. And so that got me fascinated with this idea. And so I started trying to write lyrics first, write a set of lyrics, and then go see what music would match the lyrics if I could build songs for them. And probably the most significant initial one that I did, it was when I was back to political songs after the election. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
And I wrote a set of lyrics and tried to find what music it would fit in. And I found 7 different versions, from Americana to deep house to punk pop to pop country, that I felt like this song all worked in. And so I said, why choose? I'll deliver an album that is all 7 versions of the same song.
Oh, how fun. So when you decided to pass this on, one of the things, Joe, I'd asked this question a lot during the pandemic of you singer-songwriter puts together enough money, probably makes a CD, prints out some hard copies, goes to a local bar, does a gig, and then afterwards they sit there and you hope you sell enough CDs to get you a tank of gas to get to your next gig. And also, hopefully, people sign up for your mailing list and you get this going. So I said, how do you promote your music now that it's pandemic and you don't have that model? And there was a lot of interesting discussion. So yeah,
Mm.
talk about, and you said at the very beginning of this, not only has this taught you a lot about it, creativity and the actual mechanics of using this, but it's also taught you in ways of promotion and social media. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I eschewed social media entirely, other than I had a LinkedIn profile
Yeah.
for my corporate job. And so when I wanted to, and here's, no, actually, I want to address what you said before about how a traditional musician
Yeah.
operates, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But so I said, okay, first I need to figure out how to get it distributed. And that's really not that hard. Find DistroKid and blah, blah, blah. But then the my goal was not to become Taylor Swift or anything.
Yeah.
It's just to get some feedback on my music. And so the first thing I did was I started to become aware of the playlisting services like Submit Hub and Submit Link. And I tried some of that, and I got some feedback that was correct and not surprising, and declines.
Yeah.
And then I got some accepts. And I was blown away by the fact that like somebody would listen to my song and say, "Yeah, I'll put it on my playlist." And then started rigorously tracking, oh, did somebody like it? Did they
Yeah.
love? And at the same time, Pandora, very supportive group for new artists. And the fact that I was able to get my music through their algorithm and able to be made a station out of,
Yeah.
that was super cool to see like what would get accepted and what wouldn't. Numbers tremendously small, but still a little bit of feedback, and definitely reinforcement that if they will accept it, then maybe there is an audience. It might be a small audience, but it's not about everybody liking it, because I don't like most of what I hear. It's about finding the people that do, and why would they? And I started getting on Facebook and Threads, and initially X and Instagram. and just started trying to connect in those groups and hear what the conversation is and see what people are doing. And because my music tends to be very lyrical, message oriented, I decided to try, and this might make me annoying, I don't know, look for where there are topics where I am sick of ranting like the same thing over and over, and I'll let my music rant for me. And so I will make some responses online, my songs.
Yeah.
And even one of the categories of songs that I've started to really enjoy is music of genres that aren't typically quite as message oriented, and then taking my songs and applying them to those genres. So I call them dance rants. So I'll take and make a dance music song that is about my first big one that I like. This was a rant when I was in the corporate world, is that middle
Yeah.
managers tend to spend a lot of time not fixing problems, but masking symptoms of systemic problems so their executives don't see them. And the reality is, if that problem will eventually become a crisis. If it became a crisis faster, people would notice and they would do something about it. And so sometimes you're better off not stopping a problem from becoming a crisis so that it gets resolved. And I felt like that sort of applied to the current state of the country, that once the election was done, there is no incremental change, right? We're gonna have to go through the swamp to get to the end. And the pain is going to have to be felt by the levers of power. And that means it's going to have to be felt by everybody. So rather than say that 100 times, I put it in a song called It's Okay, Things Will Get Worse.
I may have to insert that here, a clip of that. Two stories for you. So I will not embarrass, to protect the guilty, I will not name names, but I worked for a company that the culture was blaming someone else on the problem was just as good as fixing the problem. In fact, that was preferable, right?
Yep.
And then one of the things that they had a freak out is if you said the system was down, system is unavailable, you can't use the word down. That's horrible. And the system had been down for a while, and we were doing this post-mortem in the boardroom, and our chief technology officer is just ripping me because my couple of my customer service reps had used the word down, and he's just ripping me. And I waited till he finished, and I said blank because I knew him, I knew his, and I said, I absolutely understand your concern, and I will research, and if I can find who made that mistake, I will certainly coach them individually. And as a whole, I will coach my team. But let's not forget that if the system had not had an issue, we wouldn't be having this discussion. You,
I have seen that scenario, and good
yeah,
for you for
yeah,
representing the
yeah.
real thing and standing up for people, because it doesn't happen a lot and it just makes the world a worse place.
But I was like, if we had not had a system problem, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yep.
And you spending all the energy about why my team didn't communicate it better versus
Yep.
spending your energy, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yep.
So yes, I absolutely will check out that dance tune and I will celebrate with it.
Actually, it's funny. That story reminded me of another song, because
Yeah,
a guy that I was on a cruise with was telling me he was high up in his life at I think it was Procter and Gamble, and he
yeah,
was telling me a horror story about somebody having to face the board in a potential recall
yeah,
circumstance, and the feeling of that song of facing the board,
yeah.
I ended up having to do a song about boardroom hell.
And I one of the things that really I wish the world was like is there was that HBO miniseries From Earth to the Moon, all about the space race on the Apollo missions. And there's an episode where it was focused on the engineering firm that was building the lunar module. And there's early in the episode, one of the execs comes in, he's in his white shirt and dark tie and everything, and he goes to his boss and he says, "Hey, we made a mistake. There's a miscalculation. We're going to have to do a lot of work over." And he says, "And here's my resignation." And his boss says, "Wait a minute. You made the mistake. You didn't try to hide it. You immediately, tried to fix it and came true on it. Look, we're going to make a lot of mistakes doing this. And if our culture is you lose your job versus doing that." And I went, "Yeah, that's the right way. It should be raise your hand and go, this is now mistakes of sloth and laziness and just not trying. Yeah, that's different. But just sometimes honest mistakes happen, right?" So,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. And you have to improve your processes to
yeah,
like make them less likely, improve your training,
yeah,
eh, support people.
yeah,
100% agree.
yeah. Joe, what do you want to do next creatively?
It is funny. I've gotten so wrapped up in the trying to get people to listen part
Yeah.
that I'm spending a lot less time
Okay.
building songs. I know that I've played early on with building videos for the songs, and my videos are awful. They look like a third grade art project. And I'd to explore that a little bit more.
Okay.
But I still, if I give myself like a moment of rest, I'm still able to generate new projects for myself. So, like the song I'm currently working on is more about getting in. Like, I try to rest and go, what am I thinking about now? What am I feeling now? What's going on in the world? And it could be what I'm feeling about politics, it could be
Yeah.
other stuff. Some of it is, I'm sure a lot of the listeners of this hear AI and have instant negative feelings for a whole bunch of reasons. And I feel a lot of that online. And I started this as just a hobby and just see how things will go. And then all of the negativity that comes in actually is more of an effect than I would have thought it would have.
Wow.
And so I figure I'm going to get in touch with that and start to write a song about that.
Okay.
And I'm going to
Interesting.
keep trying to explore different avenues and going down these ways. And when I run out of ideas, I'll probably go to the do videos and stuff like that. In my dream world, every one of my songs would be first drafts and real musicians would pick them up, work with them, and play them in front of real people. My dream is to actually have a real musician hear my song played by a real band. But I honestly have no idea how to make that happen.
That's
Like,
interesting to say, "Hey, this is a first draft." And then so pull it, work it, and say, "Hey, Joe, here's what I think we could do and do this." And you go, "Yeah, that'd be great. That sounds fun." All right, cool. All right, we're going to throw that out to musicians if you're listening. All right, we've gone to that, but where can people find your music and where do
oh,
you recommend them starting?
they can find my music anywhere under Joseph Schwartz. My URL that has links to everything is https://joespi.carrd.co. But really look up Joseph Schwartz on any platform, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, whatever. I'm there. I would say that if you're on Spotify, you might want to look under my playlists because I have songs separated by genre in playlist, but also I have a playlist of songs about morality and religion. I have a social commentary and protest song playlist that includes established and other emerging artists. And another one that's, I call it Remember to Thrive. It's like songs that kind of make you just remember to throw out all the BS, be kind to other people. Like I have a song called Perspective that talks about just sometimes all the doors that block you are illusions. And if you can just change your perspective, you can just get right through them.
The you do in your message to me, you did mention though there's a Bruce connection on one of the songs you just recently did,
There,
right?
there is. When I was at the African American Museum of Music in Nashville, fantastic experience, and I realized that a lot of those traditional songs, I thought, what if they were updated with modern instruments?
Yeah.
And so I went and looked at songs and found John Henry, and then found that Bruce did a version of John Henry.
Yeah.
And so I listened to that version. I listened to 10 other versions of it. And I felt like everybody stayed close to the traditional feel,
Yeah.
including Bruce. As always, unbelievable instrumentation, like incredible musicality in it, but still stayed traditional. So I wanted to, as a little bit of irony and interestingness, bring it up to date with modern music and do it with AI, which also layered on goes to the heart of the message of the song. That song is about somebody in the 1800s who pounds manually steel to make the, I believe, the railroad, and they bring on a steam drill. They bring on new
Yeah.
technology, and he goes to fight it, and he wins but dies trying. And I feel like that is artists today with AI, that it is not about fighting it till you die. It's more about figuring out where it fits in your process. Maybe it's nowhere, maybe it's a little bit, maybe it's a lot. It's
Mhm.
a new tool. And to fight it, even if you beat version one, version two is coming.
Yeah.
And so the futility of that song updated with modern instrumentation, I thought was pretty cool. And it was really cool that Bruce and lots of other people have done it.
That is very cool. So I'm going to include a link to the playlist. I'm going to check out some songs. I think this is great. And I like the idea of doing videos, so that sounds really good. And we want to get you a band to do it live. I think that's a really fun goal to do.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up with the Mary question?
The one final thought is I did want to circle back to that thing about how traditional
Yeah.
musicians operate. And as I started doing this, I have no more respect in the world than can be for traditional musicians. One, because of the skills, but two, because the amount of energy that I imagine it takes just to coordinate a group of four people, get them together, schedule a time, a place, and then carry all your stuff, do things, and start again. Like the level of non-music related work that musicians have to do to get their music out is amazing to me. And so for me, I keep looking at like the AI tools as maybe they can help a little with that and not take care of everything. But I want to say the reality of loyalty and all that is those sessions that they go to. I will never get the engagement or loyalty or listenership from just having streaming music, no matter what the songs are,
Yeah.
than any musician can get by demonstrating an interesting stage presence with a musical instrument and a song.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a big difference between just creating music and performing music.
I One of my early episodes was with a my nephew via marriage, and he leads a band that is similar to like a 60s dance band, but with modern it's original songs. So they play those songs, and they also do a lot of they'll do some different covers as well. And I talked to him about he was going through all the things you mentioned, right? About coordination, doing things. And I asked them, I said, is the time on stage the easy part? And Ryan said, absolutely. The 2 hours on stage is the least work I do. I may physically be exhausted at the end, but that's the fun part. Figuring out everyone's schedules. How often do we stop for bathroom breaks? Who gets to sleep in a hotel room tonight? Who has to sleep in the van? How we do this, coordinating it. And I really appreciate that. And to a certain degree, my podcasting is the same way. This is the fun part. Just you and I talking. It's the coordinating, scheduling, making sure the person hasn't forgotten, editing afterwards, promoting it, and everything. The fun part's just getting to visit. It's all the other stuff.
And I got to tell you, I so much appreciate you inviting me and appreciate you giving me the ability to have this conversation. Nothing could be, this is super enjoyable for me.
Well, good. I'd love you anytime. All right. Think about it. I'm going to have
The
you.
Mary question.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a chance to
Oh,
summarize and give us how to contact you and everything. But
yeah.
if you are a fan of Joe's music or you're just a friend and family member that's listening to this, he did good. You should be very proud of him. But I end every podcast with what I call the Mary question. Where this came from is Jay Armstrong was a honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. He's now retired, but when he was teaching, he would give his students the lyrics to Bruce Springsteen's song Thunder Road, and they would read it as if it was a poem and would discuss it and the themes that Bruce explores, the the imagery he paints, and then he would ask his class at the end of the session, "Do you think Mary gets in the car?" Joe, that was your homework. Do you think Mary gets in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Okay, unfortunately, I don't have a simple yes or no question or
I
not yes or no answer.
the
So I actually I listened to the song and struggled with the answer and then I just read the lyrics.
yeah.
And when I finished the lyrics, the conclusion that I came to was it doesn't matter. What was interesting is the question. What's interesting is that, and this is what makes Bruce music super great, is he's able to tell you the story and bring you into it so that you can feel it and empathize it. So everybody has to solve the Mary question of if you're in this situation where you have to make the fast decision, it's life changing with all these factors going on, what would you do? And I think the point of it is to bring it to everybody that listens it. Now, that said, I was unhappy with that answer because it felt a little Weasley. And I
No,
said,
I
if
think it's
that's
an actually
true,
pretty good answer, but go ahead.
well, then I said, if that's true, then I guess I should be a listener and say, if I were Mary, what would I do? And the conclusion that I came to is, dude, if you're going to ask me to make a life changing decision, you should at least be able to give me a day to think about it and prepare. And
Okay.
so if you couldn't give me, so unless like you're being chased by murderers or the police, in which case the answer is definitely no. Like I should have a day to prepare and like work through it.
I like that. That's a good answer. I've never had that one before. I like that a lot. That's good. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts? And once again, tell people how to find you.
Find me Joseph Schwartz on any platform or joespi.carrd.co. We'll get links to everywhere. If you don't like one thing that I did, listen to something else. I have a wild range of genres and topics out there. No other thoughts other than just massive appreciation for inviting me.
Joe, I hope you had fun. I certainly enjoyed the conversation, and you're welcome anytime. If you want, just if you come up with a couple of new songs or a couple of new discussions, you're always welcome. Okay?
Okay. Well,
So,
hear from me because there's no end to the amount that I overthink this stuff.
and I feel like we could have just a whole hour of discussing the frustrations of corporate and fire
Oh, for
culture,
sure.
you know?
That I
Yeah.
could go on for many hours.
Absolutely. All right, guys, check out the links, go check out the music. Let them know what you think. What's the best way to contact you?
Oh, either Facebook, Instagram, Threads.
Okay.
I'm on all those. Joseph Schwartz, Pine Music. And again, you can get to it through that
Okay.
general link, or everything links to each other.
Sounds perfect. All right. Everyone, check it out. Let them know what you think. For now, everyone, be safe, be kind, and we'll talk soon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was
That's
really fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Set Listing Bruce. I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope you check out other episodes of the podcast. I'm going to go through some housekeeping items here on how to contact me and some of my other projects, so please hang around. I'm still on Twitter, aka X, at Jesse Jackson DFW. The show is also on Twitter at Set Lusting Bruce. I and the show have a Facebook page. Please go there and like us. I'm part of a few other podcasts. On Perfectly Good Podcast, me and my co-host Sylvan are talking about every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. Set Lusting Bruce and Perfectly Good Podcast are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, where we have hundreds of shows dedicated to music. Please check them out. My good friend Charles and I continue to talk all things Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. Lou, Karen, and I talk about pop culture topics on the JKL Media Podcast. I would love to hear your feedback. Please send me an email to setlustingbruce@gmail.com. You can leave a voicemail, 469-249-2442. Go to iTunes to rate and review any of the podcasts I'm on, and we will read them on the show. Please tell me what you like, tell me what you dislike. Hook me up with someone you think would be a great guest. Getting to talk to people about their experiences, whether it be music or other creative endeavors, is my passion. And I hope these conversations bring you a little joy, a little peace, and a whole lot of love. Keep hope alive.
There's a joke here somewhere, it's on me. Shake this world off my shoulders. Come on, baby, have a laugh on me.